Everyone, especially right-wing politicians like Trump, Vance, etc., want women to have more and more white babies. And this is a dangerous development which I really like to fight.
It's narcissism to love looking into the face of your child and seeing a reflection of you and knowing that not only will you have a legacy biologically, but you'll have a legacy as far as your values. It's anti-biblical. Your descendants will be as numerous as the stars. And this brings me to another thing I'd like to talk about here. And race does matter. I've said in the past, and I mean it often, I'm using black as shorthand when we're talking about crime statistics, or we're talking about culture. I get not all. And I understand that culture is a bigger component than race, but it's not the only component. When we are discussing the differences in culture, we are often, that's shorthand for, Western, largely white, European, Christian culture versus those that aren't. And you have some older, this is where you see a big disconnect. And it's not just about Social Security. It's not just about the American dream, but from the generation of sort of boomer conservatives and younger conservatives, where they just go, well, you know what? It's not about race. Race has nothing to do with it. Let me ask you, do you think that they may have a different perspective if they understood that they grew up in a country that was 90% white? United States, 1950 is like 90% white versus today, 57%. Even go through the 60s, 70s, 80s. Were they? Yeah. There was a time it was different in the 90s. We've talked about that. But that's because you have immigrants, you have groups of people here who for the longest time were trying to assimilate into a largely Western, white, Christian, European type culture. Yeah. That's not the case anymore. And people have said the great replacement theory, they use that term. Let's just go with it, just so that people understand what we're discussing. It's not a theory, just to be clear. It's a reality. If you look at the global percentage of human beings who are white now in the 1950s, it was about 30-something percent. 33 is the number you see. Now, it's anywhere from 10 to 14%. Do you think that's by accident? Genuinely. At what point do you say, hey, all the others have increased and only one group has gone down dramatically? If you were to see that anywhere in nature with any other species, you'd go, whoa, this might be a problem. Yeah. I know that people will say, they'll say, well, we're not endangered, we're not at risk because overall the numbers have increased. Well, that's because populations have increased across the board. But as far as percentage, white people are going to be an endangered or at-risk species of human beings in not very long. Now, if you say it doesn't matter, okay, cool. I disagree with you. But if you acknowledge that, hey, if we actually believe that diversity is our strength, well, why can't that include white people? Especially when you look historically, the largely white societies have done better, have gotten it right. And when they have exported their culture, their way of life, to other countries, you call it colonization, guess what? They come into the new world. They come into the modern world. It's usually a net benefit. It comes with some bloody battles. I get it. No one gets everything right. But why is that a good thing? 10%. And if that's a good thing, we'll get to the clips from people on the left saying it is, then would 5% be better? 1%? When is the decrease enough? Let's look at the lines of attack or the sort of reasoning from the left. Big part of it, this is why feminism is Marxism and it's evil, is an anti-natalist worldview. This is making the rounds right now, a very famous German anti-natalist feminist, but I repeat myself, her name is Verena Brunscheiger. I think I'm getting that right. Verena Brunscheiger thinks that white people, and we've seen ads, by the way, across Europe to this effect, white people should stop having the children.
We have also a proud slogan, my bloodline ends with me. And I can say that because I don't have any brothers or sisters, so my bloodline does end with me. And I think this is a very responsible choice. Everyone, especially right-wing politicians like Trump, Vance, etc., want women to have more and more white babies. And this is a dangerous development which I really like to fight. I always say it's rather selfish to have kids because they are like mini-me's. This is almost some kind of narcissistic approach.
What? Whoa. Now, do you really think that that view is different from the mainstream feminist view? Do you think it's different from AOC? Do you think it's different from your professor? It's not. You can look at the origins of feminism. It's narcissism to love looking into the face of your child and seeing a reflection of you and knowing that not only will you have a legacy biologically, but you'll have a legacy as far as your values, as far as the world that that's one of the most basic human instincts. to make the world a better place for your kids and give them the tools so that they can make it better than they found it. It's anti-biblical. Your descendants will be as numerous as the stars. Well, that's really actually narcissism. What's not narcissism is for me to live my life for my own and not be in a relationship and not have children, but to be able to go to coffee shops and travel and eat, pray, love.
Why am I wishing that her parents had put that into practice?
Yeah.
We'd be without her.
And so then you see, what do you see from left? The same ad hominem attacks, the Mehdi Hassans who find common ground with the Marxist right, saying that the great replacement is literally neo-Nazi conspiracy theory. It's not. Now people are saying the quiet part out loud. Let's look for...
Let me just kind of pause on that. I didn't know if you had another thought on that. I saw that when he put it out, and I'm like, listen, this is one of those arguments that you can't get into online, because the moment that you come out and try to clarify that, like, you're just a Nazi, right? It's just like anytime you talk about Israel or whatever, it's just a quagmire that everybody gets into. But don't be fooled about Mehdi's perspective here. What he's trying to do is to say anything that Hitler did ever, like you said, on a sandwich is wrong. The Autobahn wasn't wrong. Okay?
Right.
It's something that a lot of other nations looked at and said, hey, that's a great idea. We should have highways that connect all of our cities together. That'd be fantastic. The speed limits, maybe that was wrong. I understand. But what he is saying here is that if you think that there is an invasion of legal or illegal immigrants coming into your country in proportion to the society that already exists, and they're not assimilating and they're replacing your culture, that's Nazism. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a very reasonable fear to have that many countries are dealing with right now in Europe and the United States now. Why would anybody say that that's not? Oh, that's right, because they want it to happen.
And by the way, just to be clear, when you look at, it was 90% white in the 50s and or 89.5, and it was somewhere in the 80s, 70%, all the way through the 60s, 70s, 80s. Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, the immigrants we had here in this country, it's not the same as people being imported from Haiti, from Venezuela, from third world countries, from Yemen, from Syria. It's not the same. Yes, we have had different races of people make up the American fabric. And by the way, many of them fought hand in hand in the Civil War.
Right.
Just to be clear, it's not the same. When you're now talking 57% of Americans are white, by your definition, WASP, Western, Christian, European, the remaining percentage is not just a bunch of native-born citizens who happen to have slightly more children. It's been imported into this country. And the people who have been imported are incompatible with the country that those from previous generations knew. It would be unrecognizable to many of those folks. Continuing on this train of thought or line of arguing, this is Mark Carney, Canadian Prime Minister, talking about multiculturalism and how actually it's a good thing to use the term melting pot versus mosaic, that Canada is not a melting pot.
Canada is a mosaic, not a melting pot. And this is a distinction that matters. Because a mosaic doesn't dissolve or blend its pieces. Each is stitched to each, and all the pieces hold all. And the beauty is in the arrangement, not in the blending.
Yeah, here's the thing. So, and I know people will say, well, melting pot is something that was just developed to try sort of trick American nationalists into accepting more third world immigration. I'm just using the analogy because that's what he used. The idea of a melting pot is, hey, you're leaving Germany, you're leaving Ireland, Italy, Poland, a lot of people, right, at the early portion of the 20th century. You come here with no promise of anything. This is pre-modern welfare state, and you become American. The only promise is freedom. You learn the language. You assimilate. That's the idea of melting pot. You leave that country, you become American, and hey, that, now your previous skill sets, your previous cultures, provided they are compatible, that's actually the defining characteristic. The aspects that are compatible with this country and this culture, you can bring with you because you now have an allegiance to and only to this country, this culture. Mosaic is keep your language, keep the values from that country, keep the different regulations, the policies, keep your own courts. We'll treat you all differently. And a society cannot function that way. Here's how a mosaic can function. Borders. You can have a mosaic on planet Earth. Cameroon is for Cameroonians. Great Ghana for Ghanans. Germany, Germans, French, Frenchmen, Frenchies. Professional surrenderers, whatever it is. And the United States for Americans. You can't have a mosaic in a country and expect that country to sustain itself. Problem is, the only way that a mosaic would actually function, it really puts a dent in that whole we are the world thing. They want the world to be kind of a melting pot, but your country to be a mosaic. What does that tell you? Well, there's just no room for you in that mosaic. White, Christian, Anglo-Saxon, Western European. Bring in the Haitians. Bring in the El Salvadorians. Bring in the Syrians. Now remember, this is not something new. 2015, former Vice President Biden celebrated white people. By the way, he's wrong in his numbers, but he was saying that white people would become the absolute minority in this country and that was actually a good thing. He was wrong on the numbers, but the principle is still evil.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop.
Unrelenting.
Non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
Here's one question you can ask these people, because if they can say that, you should be able to say the opposite. In other words, if he's saying white people as a minority is a good thing, he's now made a case. It's okay for you to make the case and say, actually, I think historically, where white Anglo-Saxon people have made up the majority, they're more comparable to countries where I would want to live. He's made the case that having fewer of people like you, like myself, like many of us, I know not all of you who watch would be WASPs, he's making the case. It's okay for you to make the case. Here's how you start it. And I have screwed up so many people's lives with one simple question, 3 letters. Why? Why would we be stronger with fewer white people? You said it. Just ask why and give them the floor. And I will tell you this, a lot of people go through their life, and I mean day to day, and never ask themselves, why? Well, why are you doing that? Why are you eating that way? Why are you training that way? Why do you go to that church? Why do you believe this theology? Very often, if you ask someone, they don't have an answer. It's just something they always did. I remember I had this one time. I used to train at a gym. It was a CrossFit gym. It was the only one around. And the guy said, I'm doing deadlifts for as many as I can do in 5 minutes. I said, okay, why? He said, what do you mean? Well, why are you doing that? What's the purpose? To see how many I can do. Okay, but what, is it for conditioning? Is it to get stronger? The only reason to lift a heavy weight off the ground is to get stronger. You're not going to do that by lifting it as many times as you can in some arbitrary given window like 5 minutes. Maybe you'd serve yourself better by training properly and you wouldn't be injured all the time. The guy he came back and said, I realized, and now I'm stronger, I'm more resilient, I'm injured a whole lot less, I canceled my membership. Just didn't ask why. Well, why do you believe that there are many paths to heaven while you claim to be a Christian? Why is it better if there are fewer white people? Why are you doing this? Why do you believe this? What is the reasoning for this? To keep it simple, just stick with why. You will be shocked as to how rarely people have a legitimate answer. That's the entire Democrat Party platform and leftist wing of politics. They can't give you a why. They have to lie to you. We are not a mosaic in this country. We were never meant to be a mosaic. We shouldn't be a mosaic. No countries that claim to be mosaics are doing well or have ever done well. It doesn't work. Period. Someone wants to make the case. Let's ask him why. Oh, you're still here, which is a miracle in the age of Instagram and shorts. I think you have some shorts up there. You have an attention span that is longer than that of a fruit gnat. So thank you. I'm glad you probably would like it a lot more if you actually head over and subscribe on Rumble. I'm live there 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern, where free speech is still alive. Go to Rumble. Get off the social media ghetto that is YouTube, with a lot of homosexual activity here on YouTube. There may be some on Rumble, but I haven't seen it.